The culture of kindness isn't what it seems. It's a cage. From birth, we internalize silent rules, smiles we fake, thanks we mutter, until kindness becomes a leash on our true selves. All this goodness isn't virtue. It's fear wearing a mask. In On the Genealogy of Morals, Nietzsche unmasks conventional virtue as a tool of control. Authenticity is expensive. It burns away comfort. Are you willing to pay the price? If you've ever felt that price, drop a comment in the comments now, because this video is for you. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. You've felt it, haven't you? Ever say something honest and watch the room go silent? That hush is proof you've broken the herd's script. Maybe it's followed by cold stares, shallow smiles, or a subtle pause in the conversation. A shift in tone so faint it's almost imperceptible, but you know it's there. Is it because you've done something wrong? Or is it because you've done something different? Studies show social rejection lights up the same brain regions as physical pain. So when people shy away from your truth, their fear feels biologically automatic. Think carefully before you answer, because this question matters more than you've been led to believe. The world doesn't hate non-conformity because people are cruel. It hates non-conformity because it's afraid of what it reveals. Society depends on patterns, rules, shared understandings. It's why we create laws and rituals, why we say thank you when we don't mean it, and why success is measured by how well you fit into someone else's script. Non-conformity threatens all of that. It shakes the foundation and whispers a dangerous idea. Maybe things don't have to be this way. That terrifies people more than they'd ever admit. Here's the paradox. Society thrives on cooperation, on individuals working together toward a shared goal. In theory, this should make us more tolerant, open to new ideas, welcoming to those who think differently. But is that what you've experienced? Are we as accepting as we claim to be? Take a hard look. The truth is, for all its emphasis on diversity and open-mindedness, society values obedience above all else. It rewards those who follow the script and quietly punishes those who challenge it. And yet we continue to teach ourselves that we live in a culture that celebrates individuality. How can both things be true? Nietzsche had an answer, a brutal one. He described modern morality as a kind of great deception. He called the herd's code slave morality, where humility and kindness become weapons against the strong. What we call goodness in society isn't about lifting people up. It's about control. It's a mindset born out of weakness. Values like humility, obedience, and self-sacrifice were elevated by the powerless not to empower themselves, but to bring the strong to their level. Genuine strength, true authenticity, is dangerous in a world built on slave morality. Why? Because it's a reminder of everything the system is designed to suppress. Think about the way people praise modesty. Don't be too confident, they say. No one likes arrogance. But is it really arrogance they hate? Or is it a confidence they can't match? Nietzsche argued that systems like this have existed for centuries, not because they're virtuous, but because they benefit the herd, the group. The individual who refuses to conform exposes the lie that these values aren't about morality at all. They're about safety. The herd thrives on sameness because it keeps them comfortable. And you threaten that. Look back through history and you'll find countless examples of this play out. Think of Galileo, whose refusal to obey the Church's doctrines about the universe made him an outsider. His ideas weren't punished because they were dangerous in any real physical sense. They were punished because they challenged the established truth, the shared illusion that society depended on. Then there's Rosa Parks. Her decision to stay seated on a Montgomery bus in 1955 wasn't just about a seat. It was a direct refusal to play by the rules of an unjust system. The strength of her authenticity, her refusal to obey, was a mirror that forced an entire society to confront its own injustice. And what about Edward Snowden? His disclosure of the NSA's surveillance programs shattered the narrative that governments act solely in our best interests. For that, he became a marked man. So, what happens when you refuse to play by these rules? Society may punish you, but Nietzsche says that punishment might be the truest validation. Let's unpack why. It's not hard to see why individuals resist change so instinctively. Psychological studies have shown that one of the brain's primary functions is to identify threats and avoid them. And what feels more threatening than the unknown? Difference, unpredictability. They're unsettling because they make people question their reality. Familiarity feels safe, even if it's flawed. When someone steps outside the norm, it's a reminder that the way things are isn't inevitable. It's a choice. And the power to choose terrifies people more than they realize. Because with the power to choose comes responsibility. And most people would rather follow the script than write their own. But non-conformity doesn't just disturb society in a broad, abstract way. It's personal. When someone refuses to obey, refuses to hide their authentic self, it forces those around them to confront their own choices, their compromises, their submission. It's a mirror. And for many people, what they see staring back at them is unexamined lives. Lives built on convenience, not conviction. People hate the authentic because it reminds them of the freedom they've buried under years of obedience and fear. So here's the truth. The world doesn't hate you because you're wrong. It hates you because you're free. Freedom isn't a warm, comforting thing. It's disruptive, unruly, and deeply unsettling to those who've spent their lives running from it. When you choose authenticity, you become a living rejection of everything the herd holds dear. You remind them that obedience isn't destiny, it's a choice. And they hate you for it because deep down, they know it's true. They know they've chosen comfort over courage, conformity over conviction, and they can't stand the sight of someone who's made the opposite choice. But what if this hatred isn't a punishment? What if it's proof? Proof that you're on the right path. You see, the thing about the herd is that it will always resist what it doesn't understand. And authenticity is almost always misunderstood. That's the price of walking a path that isn't paved for you. It's lonely. It's uncertain. But in a world that thrives on illusions and lies, isn't the discomfort worth it? Isn't it worth everything to know that you're living in the truth, not hiding behind the mask of obedience? Which brings us here. What do you do with this knowledge? If the world hates those who refuse to obey, is the freedom of authenticity still worth fighting for? Or will you settle for the comfort of the cage, knowing full well the price of the lock? The choice is yours, but just remember, if they fear you, if they scorn you, if they reject you, it means you're alive in a way they don't know how to be. And that's their problem, not yours. You've been told humility is admirable, haven't you? That lowering yourself, staying quiet, keeping your head down, that's a virtue. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself why? Who benefits when you shrink yourself down? Because here's the truth. Society has sold you an illusion. Humility isn't always about goodness. Sometimes it's just a leash. Nietzsche traced this back centuries. He called it slave morality. Driven by resentment, the secret envy of the weak, slave morality redefines the powerful's traits as evil and elevates weakness as purity. Imagine this, a group of people who feel weak, outnumbered, incapable of achieving their desires directly. Instead of challenging those they see as stronger, they find another way. They redefine what strength means. They build a morality where their own limitations are transformed into virtues. Obedience becomes goodness. Submission becomes purity. Ambition becomes sin. It's a survival strategy, cunning and effective. Think about the values you've been taught to celebrate. Obedience, humility, being polite, being nice. They sound harmless, don't they? But what happens when someone steps outside these boundaries? What happens when someone prizes their strength or their independence over being agreeable? They're criticized, called arrogant, selfish, problematic. Nietzsche saw this inversion as the foundation of slave morality, a trap designed to keep the powerful from becoming too powerful, to keep the capable from flying too far. If you're struggling to see it, imagine a bird. It's raised in a cage, not because the cage keeper hates it, but because they're afraid of what the bird might do outside. The bird is told that staying grounded is safer, nobler. It's praised when it chirps softly, but when it starts flapping its wings? That's a problem. That's arrogance. That's rebellion. Like a bird taught its wings are dangerous, we learn to see our own strength as sin? The cage keeper isn't necessarily cruel. They just can't imagine the bird being free without also being dangerous. They need the bird to stay small so they can stay comfortable. The same thing happens to people. Those who obey the rules are praised as moral, virtuous, even heroic. Meanwhile, those who question those rules or reject them altogether are feared and resented. But here's the twist. The resentment has nothing to do with morality and everything to do with fear. Fear of change, fear of difference, fear of someone saying, "I refuse to live the way you do." Because when someone refuses, it forces others to look at the choices they've made. And most people don't want to see the truth of their own choices. You've seen this dynamic play out, even if you didn't recognize it at the time. From classrooms to cubicles, obedience is rewarded while creative dissent is sidelined. In school, you're praised for following directions, for coloring inside the lines, for memorizing rather than questioning. In the workplace, the team player who never makes waves gets promoted, while the person who challenges the system gets labeled as difficult or abrasive. Over time, this lesson becomes ingrained. Conformity is easier. But why does it work so well? Why do people buy into it? Part of it lies in how seamlessly society weaves morality into obedience. You're not just obeying the rules, you're being a good person, a virtuous one. Questioning those rules doesn't just make you a troublemaker. It frames you as selfish, ungrateful, or even immoral. The system doesn't need to suppress you directly. It convinces you to suppress yourself. And this is where slave morality flips traditional values. Weakness becomes a kind of purity. Someone too afraid to stand up for themselves is commended for their restraint. Someone too meek to fight back is seen as noble. The person who does fight back, who challenges the herd, they're accused of arrogance. Nietzsche cuts through this illusion when he asks, "Are you really good or just well-trained?" Ask yourself now, are you truly humble or just well-trained to stay small? If you want to see how deep this runs, look at the values reinforced by organized religion and societal norms. Most religions frame humility as sacred. Blessed are the meek, they say. But what's left unspoken is this: the meek don't inherit the earth. The meek learn to tolerate the cages they're given. Meanwhile, traits like courage, defiance, and independence, things that might help you break free from those systems, are reframed as sins. They're demonized not because they're inherently wrong, but because they're dangerous to the system itself. It's a brilliant design. You don't need physical chains if people are convinced their own boldness is sinful. Here's a question for you. What happens when someone refuses to play along? When someone challenges these so-called virtues? They're punished, but not always overtly. It's not about jail cells or public whippings. It's quieter than that. They're criticized, excluded, or ridiculed until they question themselves. Think of the whistleblower who exposes corruption. Are they celebrated for their courage or condemned for breaking trust? Think of the artist whose work questions societal norms. Are they recognized for their vision or dismissed as provocative or controversial? Society doesn't hate these individuals because they're wrong. It hates them because they're inconvenient. They threaten the story that the herd has agreed to tell itself, the story that obedience is virtuous and safety is sacred. And when someone rejects that story, It's like ripping a thread from a tightly woven fabric. The whole pattern becomes vulnerable to unraveling. But here's the deeper layer to all this. These so-called virtues, humility, obedience, they're not virtues at all. They're just fear wearing a disguise. Fear of standing out. Fear of challenging the rules. Fear of losing the comfort of the herd. That fear is why people cling to slave morality. Not because it liberates, but because it makes them feel safe. And really, isn't that the point of the leash? The bird doesn't stay grounded because it's weak. It stays grounded because it's been taught that flying is dangerous. Its wings aren't clipped, but they might as well be, because the bird no longer trusts itself. If slave morality cages us in, what does it look like to break free? Enter Nietzsche's Overman. Imagine a life where you need no approval, face no fear of rejection, and find no need to look to others for validation. A life where your strength is not measured by how well you obey, but by how boldly you define your own path. Could you handle it? Or would you look back at the crowd, hoping for some sign that you're on the right track? Most can't handle it. That's why the Overman, the Übermensch, is so rare. Nietzsche's vision of the Overman may sound like a lofty ideal, but it's not about perfection. It's about living without a map, without acceptance, and without guarantees. The Overman stands on the opposite side of every value society has fed you. He doesn't live by the rules of humility and obedience. He creates his own values. This isn't rebellion for rebellion's sake or a tantrum against the herd. It's deeper. The Overman rejects the very idea of morality as society defines it and replaces it with something far more demanding. A commitment to authenticity, even if it alienates him. This is not an easy choice. Nietzsche's Overman isn't a hero to admire or imitate. He's not a savior. He's a solitary figure who lives beyond the comforts of the herd, fully aware that few, if any, will follow him. Take a moment to reflect on this. The Overman walks alone, not out of hatred for others, but because their path is no longer his. Unlike the masses who cling to prepackaged moralities and ready-made answers, the Overman embraces life as it truly is, chaotic, absurd, and indifferent. Instead of despairing over this chaos, he thrives in it. He creates meaning in a world that offers none. He doesn't need guarantees, not from life and certainly not from others.